I have been watching Vietnamese people for a while now. And the one thing I cannot stop thinking about is where the energy comes from. Because it is not the kind of energy you see in people that is chasing something new, but more like the energy of people who have already decided that the work is the point, and the rest will follow from there. And I genuinely wanted to understand what drives that, because it is not something you can fake, and it is not something you can manufacture. And it is everywhere here. So I started asking myself the obvious question, which is whether it is all about money. And the honest answer is that, yes, money is part of it, the way it is part of everything.
Okay, so do you still remember where we are going today?
Incense Village.
And one more, and the hut village.
Hut.
Exactly. Just in the public, in the forest, in the central province of Vietnam, they have to dry the palm leaf 2 more days after that.
But you see, that does not explain the woman who has been stitching traditional hats in the same workshop for 30 years, with a level of care that has nothing to do with the transaction at the end of it. And it does not explain them making a traditional hat by hand, with movements so practiced and precise that they barely look at what they are doing, because their hands already know. And once that raw structure is built, the patience doesn't stop. It just shifts into the quiet, rhythmic brushstrokes that bring the canvas to life, adding color and soul to the hard work underneath. And I stood there thinking about how many things I have abandoned in my own life, simply because building the foundation required a level of patience I didn't have. It made me realize that true foundations are never built easily, and they are never built fast. Because the foundation of this country, the quiet resilience woven into every single hat, every single stitch, and every single soul here, comes from a history much deeper than the peaceful scenery suggests. It was built out of raw necessity. But here's the thing about Vietnam that most of us miss, because we often get too busy looking at how beautiful it is right now, what this country went through to get here. When you actually sit with that history, it changes the way you see everything around you. Vietnam fought for independence against China for nearly 1,000 years. The moment that ended, the French arrived and colonized the country for almost a century. And the moment that ended, the American War began, lasting 20 years and dropping more bombs on this country than were used in the entire Second World War. When that finally ended, the economy was in ruins. Millions of people were dead, and the infrastructure was devastated. By any reasonable measure, the country should have taken generations to recover. It took about 30 years. Vietnam is now one of the fastest growing economies in the world, going from widespread food shortages to one of the largest rice exporters on the planet, built almost entirely in a single generation by people who understood, at a level most of us never have to, that waiting is not an option, when time has never been guaranteed to anyone. I had only ever seen the rice terraces in pictures online. It was the entire reason I wanted to make this trip in the first place. So I took my drone to see them from above, and the scale of what I was looking at genuinely took a moment to process. Because those terraces were carved into the side of a mountain by hand over centuries. From above, they look like someone drew the most patient and beautiful thing imaginable onto the landscape. And the only way something like that exists is if generation after generation of people woke up and did their part without needing to see the finished picture. I went trekking the next day, and it was hot in a way that is difficult to describe to someone who has not been in that specific kind of wet mountain heat, where the air itself feels like it is working against you.
Oh, okay.
About an hour in, I was tired enough that stopping felt like the most reasonable thing in the world. I stopped for a minute, drank some water, and looked back at how far I had already come. And then I kept walking. I didn't suddenly feel any better, but stopping permanently wasn't an option. Not when I had already come this far. And here is what I noticed about these people that I want to leave you with, because it is the thing that stayed with me most after everything I saw this week. They move. They keep moving. And they do not carry the weight of what other people think about them, the way most of us do. Because you will not find anyone here losing sleep over the brand on someone else's shoes, or the car parked outside someone else's house, or the opinion of someone who has never had to work for anything. They are not making their choices based on the fear of being talked about, or looked at, or judged. They are making their choices based on what needs to be done today, and what they want to build with the time they have. And I thought about how much of my own energy goes toward managing the perception of people who will not remember my name in 5 years, toward worrying about the judgment of people who judge because they are envious of the movement they see in others and cannot find in themselves. And I thought about how that energy could go somewhere else entirely. Because the people who judge you today are gone tomorrow. And the life you did not live because you were afraid of their opinion stays unbuilt forever. Nobody lying on their deathbed ever wished they had spent more time managing the opinions of people who are watching from the sidelines. The Vietnamese people I watched this week did not survive 1,000 years of war and occupation and come back stronger by asking for permission. They did not build terraces into the side of mountains and grow an economy from nothing by worrying about who was watching or what they were thinking. And they are not running their street stalls and their workshops and their early mornings for the approval of anyone who has not done the same. They just build every day without asking whether they are allowed to. And the only question worth carrying home from here is whether you are finally ready to do the same.